Hello, welcome to MelMade. My name's Mel. I like to knit things. I like to sew things. This is episode, oh gosh, I don't know which episode it is. 4? Might be episode 4. So this is quite a short episode because I don't think I've knitted very much since, no, I've hardly knitted anything since I last filmed. The reason for this is that I've got a Gammy arm. This is my Gammy arm. It looks the same as any other arm, but the elbow hurts. And I think I talked about this during my last episode, that I'd started to feel sort of burning and a lot of pain in my elbow when I was knitting. And I did stop, and then I started again when I shouldn't have started, and experimented and did a few things. I did my episode and there were some really useful, helpful comments from quite a few people, and more than one person suggested lever knitting, or was like Irish style cottage knitting as a way to not move my elbow, so I could keep my elbow in and do this. And I thought, oh, that's a really good idea, I'll try that. So I should have waited for my elbow to get better first, clearly, but I didn't. I was like, oh, maybe that's the solution, so I can still knit. And I tried it, and then I knitted for quite a while, and then the next day my elbow was swollen and it really hurt. So don't do what I did. If you have a sore elbow, just stop, because I made it worse. As a sort of thing I would do. First, I put up with it for a couple of weeks, getting really grumpy, looking at the time and going, when is it going to feel better? Then I went to see a sports massage. I went for a sports massage, and that was absolutely excruciating, but in a good way, because I'd never had one of those before. I'd had massages, but they're like, you know, gentle with the plinky plunky music playing and scented oils, and all very nice and so very And this one was, you know, she meant business, and she was really good actually, but she was massaging my forearms, and she was just like, your poor arms, she said, they're so tight, what have you been doing? I said, well, I'm a bit of an obsessive knitter. And she was like, okay. And she did some really good stuff. She was just massaging the tendons, because she said they were just rock solid, not in a good way. And she said, what I'm doing here shouldn't hurt you. I know it hurts you, but it shouldn't hurt, but that's just how tight your muscles are. And then she did my back and my neck, and she was just like, you could hear her going, you know, just I don't think she could believe it. She was like, are you not always in pain? She said, I don't understand how you've got this much tension in your neck and in your shoulders, and do you have headaches? And I was like, no. And she was like, I don't know how. And she was easing it, and there was like crack, 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 crack as she did. And now, like, I think, yeah, everything's loosened up. But I was explaining to her, I'm either knitting like this, or I'm at my computer at work like this, probably, you know, squinting at it and glaring at it and muttering to myself. And I'm always driving. I do a lot of driving with my job as well, so I'm always doing this. And she said it's like your rib cage is here where your stomach should be, and it's like I'm doing this all the time, which is something I must be doing. So that really helped, but I was still in a lot of pain with my elbow. She also said that this was like, I was almost like this. She said your hands almost like a little claw. And I realised I was holding a lot of tension in my fingers like that. I think I like clutching things, like when I drive I'm gripping on for dear life, and I think obviously when I'm knitting with my needles I must be holding them quite tight. Maybe that hasn't helped. So she noticed that. That was really useful. So it was last Monday. I've just stopped hurting now, and I'm going to go back for one next week. But in the end I did bite the bullet, and I went to see the doctors just to check, because I got to the point where I didn't know if I could do my yoga. I didn't know if I should be doing any stretching exercises, but I thought, if I don't know what's wrong with me, I probably shouldn't be just, you know, assuming that it's this. I just diagnosed myself with golfer's elbow, but which is like tendonitis. But I thought, well, it could be anything really, and I don't know what I'm doing, you know, I could be hurting myself even more. So I went to the doctors, and she just said, yes, it's essentially golfer's elbow. And she said, it'll clear up in a couple of weeks. I know it's already been going on for 6 weeks, but you just need a couple more weeks. I really think it'll be sorted out by then. And then I was like, but when can I knit again? And at first she went, well, you can knit now if you support your hands. And then she just must have seen my face. I was like, And then she was like, actually for you, she said, for you, I think 2 weeks off. I was like, ah, I think she saw the sort of mad light in my eyes, and I think she was thinking she's just going to go home and like knit immediately, isn't she, for like hours and make herself worse. I would have done as well if she'd said I could. So now I'm off. I've got my day I'm allowed to start knitting again is the 11th of November, Armistice Day. So that's what I'm counting down to. So this isn't a very long episode, possibly, you'll see, but I thought I'd still film just to give anyone an update, because there might be other people suffering with this as well. And also, as a result of my injury, I got this book, which I've been asked for ages. It's Knitting Comfortably by Carson, I don't know if I pronounce this right, Carson Demure. The Ergonomics of Hand Knitting. I saw this featured on Fruity Knitting 2 or 3 years ago, and I remembered him saying that he wasn't distributing at that point in the UK or in Europe. But I thought, well, I've got time to read now, because normally I'm too busy knitting to read all my knitting books. And I thought, oh, I wonder if he's distributing in the UK. I couldn't see anything online, but I found him on Instagram. He's like Ergo I Knit on Instagram. And I said, hello, are you distributing to the UK? Please say yes. And he said, I am distributing to Europe, but he wasn't distributing to the UK. And I believe we have Brexit to thank for that, ladies and gentlemen. He would very kindly direct me to the closest bookshop, the closest distributor to me, which was in Amsterdam. And it was De Afstap, the bookshop. And I went on there online, and via Google Translate, I don't know why, I didn't manage to find the translate button for the online, but I worked out what things meant. I think there was like Winkelwagen was like the shopping trolley, I think. It was amazing, actually. What a lovely language. But yes, I went online and I managed to buy it, and it came, and I'm really, really happy. And this is, honestly, this is a really, really good book. I do recommend it to anybody. It's got loads in it. There's lots of about, understanding about your tendons, how to look after yourself, posture, about fibres, about needles, and stretches you can do. And there's also, I found really interesting, just a real like in-depth look at continental versus English knitting styles, how you hold your needles. And it made me, I did try some of the techniques he suggested, because I was reading about, and I couldn't think of how to try this without, I couldn't picture it in my head without doing it, if that makes sense. And I did have a little cheeky try. But I can't wait to be actually sort of fully functioning again, and then I will give some of these methods a try, because I think my knitting method isn't brilliantly efficient, because I am moving both hands at the same time. It just makes it a bit trickier and a bit more stressful for the joints, whereas one should be stable. So those of you that suggested lever knitting, and that principle's there. My sisters are very kindly clubbing together to get me a knitting belt for Christmas as well. So I think I'm going to give that a try, where you with the double pin DPNs and pointed needles, yeah, DPNs, and you put the belt on and you stab one into the belt, and then this one would be, this would mean this arm would move more, but apparently if I do it properly, I will be, and tension my yarn right, I should be moving my bigger muscle groups. I think that's the idea. So that's something I'm looking forward to trying. But yes, if anyone is interested in, having these problems, I would recommend this book. I think it's fantastic. So that was really good, and that was really helpful. So I was going to just talk about that at the end, but I've talked about it at the beginning. Never mind. We'll go now to what I'm wearing. I am wearing, this is one that I knitted last year. It is, just show it to you there. What's it called? It's called Close. It's from Kim Hargreaves' Covet book, and I'll find a good picture of it. Hold on, there's some lovely patterns in here. I've knitted a few of these. There you go. I haven't used the recommended yarn, and I think it would have turned out a bit different if I had. the reason for that is when I did this, I was just getting into the idea of using actual wool, but I was really, really frightened of knitting something that would be scratchy. So I went to Rachel of Tangled Yarn and said, I'm looking for a green. I know I wanted it to be green, and I don't want anything scratchy, but I would like to try real wool. And so she suggested I try this, and it's Skiing Queen. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And it was it was Skiing Queen. What type of wool was it? I think it's merino, but I can't remember the exact name. But I know that the colourway was Enchanted Forest, and I was like, oh, immediately I was like, right, I've got to get that because it's called Enchanted Forest. And it's such a gorgeous wool. It is a super wash, so it isn't as warm as it would be if it wasn't. It's worsted, I think, in the way it's spun, and it's double knit weight. And I'll show you it up close. Isn't that pretty? I really loved knitting with this. It felt like pointillism in art. I don't know if you know the artist Surat, and he did lots of little, you know, he would put little dots of colour in, and as you step back they would blend, they blend in your eyes, and you see the colours as you step back. I feel like this jumper reminded me of that sort of painting technique when I was knitting with it. Every stitch is just a slightly different shade of blue, yellow, green, brown, and it was just, every stitch was just, it was like a joy. Really, even though it's a lot of plain stockinette, a stocking stitch, I really enjoyed it. I think because of the nature of this, you were supposed to use Alpaca Classic was the yarn you were supposed to use, and we know alpaca is drapey and this is drapey, but I think it would have been a little bit lighter, and it probably, this is stretched out of shape a little bit. It's quite roomy anyway. I wanted a roomy one. I think that it's stretched a little bit because of the nature of it being superwash as well, but I'm very pleased with it. It's a lovely simple one with a big balloony sleeves. It's a nice my weekend jumper. So I thought I would show you that. I had lots of lovely comments on my last one, and one lady, and I'm sorry I've forgotten her name, but she said, oh, I know, I love colour work, I'd love to knit the unst, I can't do it, or I've never tried it before and I'm too worried. I'm just going to show you my attempt at colour work knitting and show you all my mistakes because it might cheer you up. Now, this is an old knitting pattern I found. I think it was one of my grandma's, and I wanted to knit my boyfriend a lovely Fair Isle jumper. So we went through all my old patterns, like vintage patterns, I do love them. We found one that he might like, or that he definitely did like actually. I'll find a picture for you. It was this. Hang on, see if there's too much glare there. But James being James, he likes bright colours, and he went, I like these colours better than that one. Now, believe it or not, this is really embarrassing actually, but I was just like, well, I'll just knit you the women's one. There's no difference between women's and men's jumpers. It's just a matter of size. Yeah, that's not true. Don't do that. Because there's actually a lot of differences between men and women, and I do know that. Women have a different shape here. Didn't think about that. So poor James. I knitted it and I worked really hard. I can't remember what yarn this is. This was maybe about 3 or 4 years ago that I did this. And I got the right colours. Here it is. It's knitted bottom up. Hang on. Is it in pieces? It was knitted bottom up in pieces, but then you join in the round for the yoke. And I'd never knitted like that before. So that was a new thing. I think it did pull in. Hang on, let me show you the right side. It did end up pulling in quite a bit here. I probably should have gone up a needle size for this bit. It's better than I remember it, because I remember it as being a bit of a disaster. But I think what happened was I'd never knitted colour work properly before in a jumper, and I was like, how could it be? Like one stitch is one colour, another stitch is another colour. And I cracked on, really enjoyed it, because colour work knitting is just so fun. But I did the rookie mistake that I think everyone does. Well, I hope everyone does. And I initially had them all, I didn't, with my floats at the back, I had them too tight, so everything was bunched up. So I think I got up to here, looked at the back, found it all bunched up, tried to chop bits and tie bits. That didn't work, don't do that. And I had to pull it out and start again from here, and then I re-knitted it. And then, you know, I think I'd had to look up a couple of tutorials, and I thought, okay, there is a bit of a technique to it. And this is what I got. And oh, it does look nice. It looks really nice. I'm really pleased with it. But then James tried it on, and I don't think I really checked my tension either at this stage. I still didn't get why I needed to do that. And poor guy tried it on. I should try and find a photo of him with it on. But it was really tight here. It was just stretched across here, really, really tight. He was so uncomfortable, bless him, even though he liked it. And in the end, I didn't know what I was doing. I just thought, well, I'm not re-knitting it. And I thought, if it's tight here, I'll knit a bit and insert it, and which I now know is something called a gusset. I basically made up a gusset. So I've put gussets in there. I might get him to try it on again. I think he's lost some weight since I knit it from him, because he doesn't wear it very much now. But actually, it might fit him better. So I put that in there, and I put that in there, because I think the female jumper pattern, I could have just knitted these colours in the male pattern and changed it to a crew neck. I could have just done that. I would do that if I was doing it again. But in my madness, I just thought, like, I've got to knit the colours, the right one with the right colours, even though it's the wrong gender. So yeah, it was quite tight. I think this fits in better, but I do think it still maybe strains across the shoulders, which I must be able to try it on again. But yeah, that was my first foray into colourwork knitting, which I remember as being terrible, but isn't as bad now I'm looking at it as it could have been. And it was really nice to use a vintage pattern. I think this was from the 70s. There's some other great ones on the back there. Some lovely ones. Yeah. And that was knitted, I think it was 25%. Actually, no, it might be 100% wool. I think I got the wool from Hobbycraft or somewhere. So yeah, that was one of the first jumpers I think I knitted for James. Bless him. And I was very pleased that he was so excited to have one, because it was nice to hand knit something for somebody that was so excited to receive it. So that was that. And the other thing I will show you is this. I haven't got the pattern for this anymore. Don't know if you can see this properly. This is an oversized dark chocolate brown jumper. I knitted this. This is the first jumper I think I knitted. Yay. I knitted this for myself when I think I was 17. Didn't check my gauge, didn't know why I should, because I was very thin at the time, but I decided I needed to knit 3 sizes up because I knew I knitted tightly. And so it was going to be loose anyway, so it does. But the good thing is it still fits me now, because if it had fitted properly, it wouldn't fit me now. And it was, I think it might have been a Wendy pattern. It's a very simple, knitted in pieces, bottom up V-neck jumper. And it's knitted in acrylic wool, so I knew it wouldn't scratch. It still scratches a bit, actually. Anyway, yeah. Can't remember what yarn I used either. But the reason I'm showing you this is when I started doing my combination knitting, quite by accident. So at one point, I think I knitted the back, and I'll just show you the back, the stitches in the back. There you go. And started knitting at the front. And then I realised what I'd started to do is somehow twist the purl stitch. So I was going like this into every knit stitch. It was really tricky, and I thought, why don't I just start knitting through the back stitch? That makes sense. It wants to do that. I'm going to do that. So I changed my knitting style sort of halfway through and became a combination knitter without knowing it. And I'll show you, this is the front where this happened. I'm trying to see if I can actually, I think you can see the line. Yes, you can. So down here, that's all twisted stitches where I was, you know, knitting the purls wrong and then trying to knit the normal way, and then a garter stitch and then knit stitches. And then this is where I started knitting into the back of the stitches, and then it started to look a lot more smooth. And it was a lot quicker. And I was like, sorted. I don't know why no one's thought of this before. And that was it. I was a combination knitter. And all went well until recently, when I started knitting in the round and was accidentally, because I was always knitting and always knitting through the back loop, I was constantly twisting my stitches. So I do have more than one jumper in the round that actually has been knitted with twisted stitches. There's some really excellent stitch definition, but it isn't quite how it's supposed to look. I thought that might be interesting to anyone that's interested in the combination knitting and how that happened. Right, still I'm working on my eldest child's hoodie. I mean, I say I'm not working on it at the moment, but I will be. That is my aim. I had a disaster. Oh yes, I'll go and get you my little panda Christmas jumper crisis. 2 seconds. So I finished so much of little Henry, my little nephew, and he wanted a Christmas panda jumper. I measured him in August. I allowed a good couple of inches. I thought he'll grow, it's going to be fine. I did swatches, I made a chart, I got a pattern, I upscaled the pattern. The panda face is from the Intarsia pattern. I added the little Santa hat. Oh, and then I've done one sleeve. He has long arms. I was texting my sister for checking arm measurements, body measurements for the long body so that he could grow into it. And then I went down for a visit last week and I really wanted to have this finished in time, and I was there and I was like, I can't knit, I'm so sorry. I said to Henry, I'm really sorry. I said, I'll try and finish it before Christmas and I'll send it, but I said, can I just try on what I've got so far? And I didn't even try it on him. He held up against himself and I was like, yeah, that's too small. And he was like, it is, Auntie Mel. And I'll put a picture up. I mean, bless him, he's like, I'm so sorry, Henry. And yeah, he's just grown a lot, and this is the thing. And I think, again, because I don't see them very often, because they live down the country in the Cotswolds, you know, this is the problem with knitting for children that are growing quickly. My sister very kindly said, oh, well, she said, well, you can change your deadline to 4 years' time when his younger brother Alfred should be the same size and will be ready to wear it. So I was like, yeah, I suppose I've got a 4-year deadline, but, you know, that doesn't really help Henry. Okay, sorry about that. My camera, got a dodgy stand and it just sort of collapsed. I think that's all back up and running. Yeah. So, I'm not having a good knitting month, everyone. But yeah, I've got another long deadline, and I don't know if I've missed the boat. He's 8 now, he's nearly 9. I don't know how much longer he's going to want to wear, if he ever wanted to wear knitted jumpers by me at all. But that was a shame, and I was just cursing my Gammy arm, but then actually I could, even if I'd finished it, I would have held it up against it. It would have still been too small by Christmas. But there you go. I don't know what the solution is apart from just to knit things massive for children, like, you know, 4 inches too big. I don't know. There you go. I was a bit disappointed about that, but I do think Henry will cope. Fingers crossed. He was playing happily within the next 2 minutes. I think I was more upset about it than he was. Yes, so that's that. The other thing I really want to do, I've put everything else on hold. I'm like, stuff the panda jumper. I'm gonna have to leave that for 4 years. I will get it finished, and little Alfred might have it oversized. But I really, really want to start knitting my magnolia cardigan. I got the wool when I went to Yarndale. I'll show you. I've also bought some Cumulus, the baby alpaca and silk to pair with it. I'll show you what I did. A swatch before the elbow went wrong, or actually maybe just after it did. I did a swatch. I'll show you. First, I'll show you the yarns I've got. I think I showed you these last time. Cumulus slate grey, and this is Lammermuir wool, simply Shetland Aran. And I thought this was going to be less bluey and more sort of a medium grey or a browny grey, but anyway, this came and I thought, well, I'll try them together, and this is the result. So I swatched, I've just knitted them together to see if it works. So if you can see, like that. Is that showing? I feel like I can't even see, but maybe you can see. Yeah. So I don't know if that's the sort of grey I want. I think it'll look nice. I don't know if it's a bit bluey brownie, or whether it's going to just mix in your eye when you're in a distance. And I mean, I was wondering if I should go for a black alpaca, but then I know MelMade stuff tried it with sort of a black, and I think when you've got these bobbly, cabley details like you do, lace and cable details with the Magnolia Bloom cardigan, I think maybe a black might overpower the grey and then overpower the pattern. I think MelMade stuff found that out. So, dying to knit that. And my Christmas, I've got a little Christmas jumper plan for me, but I think what I need to do is not put pressure on myself to finish things and just take my time, because I've got 2 weeks until I can try and knit again, but even then I think I've got to ease myself back into it and not be knitting as much as I was, or taking longer breaks. It doesn't matter how excited I am to finish things, I'm going to have to calm down a little bit. In the meantime, I'm cleaning. House needs a lot of cleaning, clean, and reading. I'm catching up on some of the books that I wanted to read, but I was too busy knitting to read. I hadn't got round to listening to them on Audible, and just trying to keep myself distracted and busy until I can knit again. So I think I'm trying to make sure that I balance myself out a little bit and not get too obsessive about things, and do a lot of self-care and do a lot of the you know, herbal teas, the yoga, the things that keep me right, instead of just being too hyper focused on my knitting or whatever it is that I'm into at that time, because that's something I think I struggle with. So I'm trying to use the time I've got in a sort of good way, and I'm going to go back for another sports massage on Wednesday, because that was amazing. I really, you know, I think that could be a really good way forward. I did feel really good after it. And I might pop some footage on at the end of some caves near us, where me and James went walking with Charlie in the summer, and did a little bit of extreme knitting at these caves, so I think I might pop them in. And I will film next month, and hopefully by then I'll have actually had some knitting done and I'll be back. Oh, fingers crossed. Keep your fingers crossed for me. But thank you very much for all your lovely comments and all the feedback. It's really, really, really nice to sort of connect with some of you. And my name's Mel, like I said. I can be found on Instagram as MelMade at MellyArt13, and on Ravelry as MellyArt. So thank you very much. I will see you next time. Bye.